And welcome, even a few seconds ahead of 12 o'clock today, as to make up for any time I might have been late. I'm Dave LaMont. It's your Monday nooner. Apologize for not being on Friday, but frankly, I didn't have anything to say. Why waste our time, right? Yours and mine. You could have a little feast in our time if you're a Fast Times at Ridgemont High guy. Fully expect, by the way, the cats will be here any second. They are already on the other side of the camera, so to speak, not running it because this is my laptop, but they're out there. I'm sure they'll be around. So I want to talk a little about the Miami Hurricanes today, not breaking down the Central Connecticut State game, but the bigger picture. And it's sort of in response to comments that Kirk Herbstreit made on game day on Saturday regarding Miami's program and how long since the firing of Larry Coker, how average the football program has been. 7-5 is their average record since then. If I remember correctly, it's just one double-digit victory season with Mark Richt in his first year when I started out 10-0. There have been, and I'm paraphrasing and I'm adding in some of my own spice. Obviously, some of the bowl game failures have been monumental. Some of the teams they've lost to, like FIU is the one that really grinds people. Louisiana Tech is an okay program, but should no way be competing and beating Miami. That was in a bowl game, I believe, the one in Shreveport where Miami just took a big smelly dump. So it's not been anything like what people got spoiled on starting in the 80s up for about a 20-year period with one or two exceptions. National championships, contending for national championships, conference titles, and all that. Since joining the ACC, it's been just at best, all right? So a lot of reasons have come out. One of them is, although facilities-wise, Miami is just caught up, they had to play catch-up for so long. Now, I know what you're saying. Hey, they didn't have the best facilities when they were winning titles. No, they didn't, but facilities aren't what they are now, okay? There are small schools with giant facilities. The first university, the first football program in the state of Florida with a bubble was UCF, okay? And that was before they became what they are now. So facilities, they fell behind. It's a private school with a small student body. So we're not going to get into the whole on-campus or no on-campus stadium because, quite honestly, I don't know what you would tear down to build an on-campus stadium. I mean, you need a hell of a lot of real estate. And with the basketball arena there now, that's probably what is going to be considered. So the point is Miami doesn't have all of the tools. They don't have a devoted 25,000 students to show up at games or 15 or 20. And those students can literally get done throwing up in the morning and show up for a noon kickoff if they want, or party all day and be ready to go. You don't have the tailgate scene that you have because you're playing in a stadium that's undergoing all these. They're building a racetrack at your stadium. That's how little control the Miami Hurricanes have over all that. So they are a occasionally respectable program, frequently overrated. And if you don't know, I am a Miami alum. Okay, so I feel like I've been affiliated with the program closely in the past. So I think I know what I'm talking about. They don't spend as much as other schools do on coaches, especially public schools, although Notre Dame ain't paying Brian Kelly $2 an hour. And somehow they believe that they'll lure Mario Cristobal out of Oregon, where he could make, I don't know how much money, working for Phil Knight and Nike, which is basically what you do at Oregon. And the facilities there and the amount of money they have at Oregon is ungodly. Think of if Jeff Bezos had his own college football program. It's almost that rich. So it makes no sense for me for Cristobal, unless he's having problems there, which it doesn't look like he is, for him to leave Oregon. It would be a gamble at best. So if you're thinking about that, I wouldn't, but I've been wrong many times before. So what Herbstreit basically talked about the distance that students have to drive, and people from that South Dade area have to drive to get to a Hard Rock Stadium. It's not an easy trip. It's not a quick trip by any means. Obviously, the folks in Broward who might live a little closer to the stadium, some of them, they aren't really showing up. The fan base here is highly fickle, and they only really care about who the opponent is, not so much the home team, which is fairly typical for almost every South Florida, not almost, every South Florida sports team. All right? The other thing he pointed out was, and this is the part I want to really get into, the commitment of the university itself. Dr. Julio Frank is the president, has been for a few years. Not a sports guy. The previous president, Donna Shalala, was. Tad Foote was not a sports guy, but the football program thrived under Tad Foote because he hired an athletic director in Sam Jankovic who took over and ran the thing and ran it really well. I don't know if this is all on Blake James. Talked about this a little bit before last week. Does he have the resources to work with? For all of you who think you could do a better job, could you? If you walked in with the same budgets and everything else and the same booster relationships, remember, we don't have a big sugar daddy for these programs. You just don't. And that's his point. The president told Blake James, hey, you're in charge of sports. I'll be over here looking at something else that's not sports related. Now, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. The chief job of a university president is to make sure the entire university functions as perfectly as you can get it to be. That's every inch of the campus, every pebble, every blade of grass, every handicap parking sign, every roll of toilet paper, all the things, every light in every dormitory is the responsibility of the university president. Ultimately, he or she obviously hires all the people, or his office hires the people to teach, to maintain, to coach, all of this stuff. But they all fall under his umbrella, in this case of him. So for the longest time, I believed that it was more important for a university to be great academically than in sports. Because how many athletes are on campus as a percentage of your student body? Now, at a place like Miami, it's a little bit higher percentage because you have a small student body, or Wake Forest or someplace like that. At a North Carolina or Ohio State or UCF or Arizona State, where you have these massive student bodies, the athletes are a much smaller percentage. But sports is the window to your school. People will find out about your university very often by watching something on television, a basketball game or a football game primarily. So I want the University of Miami to be the best university in the country that it could possibly be in teaching men and women whatever they want to learn, whatever they're there for. They have a fine broadcasting school down there, very fine communication department. The medical is doing well. They're known for law. There's things that make you proud to be an alum. They're academics. Now, people don't go walking around going, scoreboard, look at where our rank is on best universities. Not many people do that. Very few that I know. But that should matter to you if you are an alum. The problem with the University of Miami, what a lot of you may not know who aren't from this area, is that the alumni base isn't necessarily here. In the state of Florida, there's a ton of people who root for the Gators who went to school there because it's a big school. Same with Florida State. And they're located all over the place. Miami, not so much. It just isn't. So you don't have that booster loyalty that you might have in Gainesville or in Tallahassee. And heck, maybe even now, Central Florida, as they become more established and get a deeper foothold, might even be a better program than Miami at the moment, although they play in a little bit easier conference. They might do well in the ACC. At this point, nobody in the ACC is doing that well. Your standard bearer just got beat. So, and Kirk pointed out that unless there's a better commitment made, and my first reaction was, yeah, but I want my school to be a great school. And then I thought, why can't you have both? Why can't the university president get his nails dirty every once in a while and throw his weight around a little bit in sports? I don't mean he has to sit in the athletic director's office thumbing through the magazines in the waiting room waiting to get in to tell him to go fire 15 coaches. I don't mean that. But why don't you get more involved? Why don't you accept that a university in that window to the program? I mean, if I mention University of Miami, are you going to think of the School of Medicine? Maybe if you're going through UHealth and getting, go to the hospitals or rehab centers or whatever, maybe physical rehab centers. But you might think about football. And in that case, you're not thinking too fondly because they've been pretty As I mentioned, 7-5 since 2005 on average. And all the different coaches. Randy Shannon, he's the guy. He's a local guy. He played there. He knows the program. He knows South Florida, and he got fired. Al Golden, bringing in a guy who won at a school they said he couldn't win at. It was a city school like Temple. It faces some of the same problems that Miami does, and he got fired. Mark Richt, prodigal son returns home. Those are literally the words that Howard Schnellenberger, the late Howard Schnellenberger, told me when we talked about this. The prodigal son has come home. He couldn't have been more proud, as if he had gotten his job back. Here's a guy who played there, was a success in college coaching at Georgia, had a lot of wins there. Great reputation as a recruiter and as a human being. He's your guy. Starts out 10-0. He's gone. Manny Diaz, he knows Miami. His dad was the mayor. He knows the area. Thank God we got him out of Temple. He's a local. He loves the city. He loves it, and now you all want him gone. I think I would like to see Dr. Frank get more involved, because you look at some schools that have great academics and athletics. Just up the road, University of Florida has a ton of athletic success. For God's sakes, Katie Ledecky just left Stanford, which is heaven on earth, to go to Gainesville to train with Anthony Nesty, the swim coach there. You don't hear about that happening down here. We've had some success with some people in track and field, to be fair. Oh, there's the cat. Which one do we have here? That is Bonnie. So I would like to see Dr. Frank get more involved. I would like to see more pressure on Blake James, and not created by Twitter. And I would like to see the president start to act like athletics matters, because you can build up a football program and a reputation for your school through athletics. It's no coincidence that if you look at some of the better football schools, that athletic rates go up. Enrollment rates go up when your athletics are successful, and you start turning away more people. And in some cases, I think some colleges get off on that, turning people down more than they do accepting them. That's a mean thing to say, but you can always brag, hey, we only have an 8% acceptance rate here. Hard to get into our place. Stanford does it. Now, their football program is pretty mediocre now, but they're respectable in basketball. Their Olympic sports, their so-called non-revenue sports, are incredible. They've made the investment. So all around the country, Alabama. Hang in there, Bonnie. Almost finished. Alabama is successful in football, in the understatement of the year, and it's a pretty good school. You can do both, and that's what I would like to see start to do. Let's get the president more involved. I'm kind of appreciate that his job is to make sure that everything is running smoothly. I also appreciate that one of the things that needs to run more smoothly is the athletic department. Basketball's down, baseball's down, football is down. It can be done with a push from the top, and that's what I'm hoping for. Now, let's shift on to a couple other things, and then I'll get out of here. Ryder Cup, baby. I'm a bit nationalistic when it comes to Olympics and USA versus whomever. I probably wouldn't be one of the drunks at Whistling Straits screaming at Europeans to hit it in Lake Michigan or whatever. I wouldn't go that far. But at the same time, I take pride as an American and as a golfer when American golfers kick butt and take names, and that's exactly what happened. You look at the Euros and look at the makeup of that team, and there's a few guys on there that probably aren't going to be on there in a couple of years when they go to Italy. For the United States, solidly put together team. And you've got guys who will be stalwarts on that team for years to come. The United States is in a position to redominate the Ryder Cup while the Europeans go through their transition of trying to figure out what to do with Sergio Garcia and Ian Poulter and some guys, who were okay. They have the best player in the world in John Rahm, but it was Dustin Johnson, the second best player in the world by rankings, who went 5-0. The United States has 9 of the top 11 golfers. So in a way, they should have won big, and by God, they did. Because in sports, the list of should-haves but didn't is a long one. and getting the cup back and being a scrape. Now, who knows what's going to happen in 2 years? Guys could get hurt. Guys could start go off of form. Remember, Jordan Spieth basically disappeared from good golf for 2 or 3 years before he got his act together. It does and can happen. But the prospects for this U.S. team are bright as hell. Cantlay, Schauffele, Morikawa, who hit yet another unbelievable laser iron when he needed to wrap up a match yesterday. It ended up being the clinching match. Dustin Johnson at 37 couldn't have been any better than he was over the weekend. And he's the old guy. You didn't hear a word after they started playing about Koepka and DeChambeau. And you know what? They both play pretty well. Okay, so they don't play together. Big damn deal. They adjusted. After Koepka made some comments that bothered people about team golf, didn't matter. They played great. So you have to buy on this American team. And we'll see what the Europeans do. It's not like Europe doesn't have talent. But they had a few players like McIlroy who didn't play their best until yesterday. And, you know, it's just an inevitable shift. It's like when you replace an old team with a younger team, you have to wait for the old team to get old. They don't have a lot of old golfers, but Lee Westwood might be time to step aside. Ian Poulter, incredible player with an incredible record. Not this year. You can't live off your past. Hey, Phil Mickelson won the PGA. So what? He went on the Ryder Cup team. Wasn't good enough, in the opinion of Steve Stricker, who was right. He went with young and experienced, which you can do on the PGA Tour, and it worked out beautifully. So very, very happy about that. I don't know what to tell you about the Dolphins. I actually expected them to win that game yesterday, although they kind of didn't deserve it. But, you know, not knowing if Jacoby Brissett was going to be a good replacement for Tua, turns out he played pretty well. I mean, you cannot really complain about Brissett. You're a little bit surprised at the defense, although they did get a pick six, but allowing the Raiders to score there. But they had the Raiders on the ropes, just gassed beyond gassed. And yet, the Raiders were the better team at the end. So you're 1-2. Your starting quarterback situation is a little iffy right now while Tua recovers. You know that there's only one really good team in your division, and they beat you by 35 points, and you didn't score. You know the Patriots are off. We know the Jets are perpetually off. And Zach Wilson, who I saw in a preseason game and I really liked him, wasn't playing against the regular Green Bay Packers and is now, to use another technical expression. He's really struggling. By the way, speaking of the Green Bay Packers, TJ gets a half a sack, and Ron Rodgers goes off at the end. 37 seconds, no timeouts. Oh, I got no problem here. We're going to run the clock down to 5 and kick a field goal. He even waited when he had to clock the ball at the end, looked up at the clock and went, I'm going to wait. Okay, clock it. And then a fist pump as he ran off because he knew he had done everything possible and he knew that his kicker was going to come through, and he did. So if you are concerned about Aaron Rodgers, don't be. I don't know whether you like him or not. I do. Not just because I'm now a Packer fan. I just think the guy's entertaining as hell. He made a couple of throws last night, and in the Monday night game, he made a throw that blew Peyton Manning's mind. And he made a couple more of those yesterday. Just mind-blowingly accurate. Like, how did you do that? And it's the Marino mentality. Dan Marino would always say, you can't beat a perfect throw. And that's the mentality you got to have in that position, is that Marino mentality. And it worked out pretty darn well for him. So, Ron Rodgers, big time stuff, buddy. Good stuff all the way around. Very, very entertaining. As for the Dolphins, play calling has become an issue. I thought the only thing, that screen pass that everybody's talking about that ended up getting a safety out of it, like, what? Did you kind of forget where you're supposed to do here? The ball is, close to the end zone. I don't think you ever really want to do anything that calls for any kind of retreat unless it's a little bit of a rollout or something. I mean, I'm not saying don't throw the ball, but no, let's not get crazy. Let's not. And say we did, as the old expression goes. So I don't think you throw all your arms in the air and throw your chips and all your money in the air and go, well, they're done. They're not going to do anything. In a weak division, they could still, with an extra game, they could just easily get to 9-8 and make it. There's going to be 9-8 teams in the playoffs this year in the NFL. It's just going to be. So it's not time to panic. But I will tell you this: if Brissett plays again next week and plays decently, do we actually have a Tua and Jacoby Brissett quarterback controversy? That's a mind-blowing thought for another day. That's your Nooner. I'm Dave LaMont. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you Friday. Maybe.